The first chapter, which is set upon St. Dunstan's Day. It had rained furiously for all of the 6 days leading up to St. Dunstan's Day. Water rattled off slopes of broken slates, steamed like horse piss from split gutters, cascaded from the points of eaves, boiled like oxtail soup in leaf-choked drains, coursed in foamy breakers across flagged walks, and thumped down drain pipes in biblical quantities. For the same measure of time that it had taken the good Lord God to manufacture everything in creation, the entire city was comprehensively rinsed. There was water, as the poet had it. The poet admittedly was wont to have it mixed with brandy, everywhere, and every drop of it was obeying Newton's first law of apples. In the rents of Beehive Lane, near Body's Bridge, unpotted chimneys guzzled in the rain and doused more than a score of ailing grates. The steep cobbled rise of Garlick Hill became a new tributary to the Thames, and the runoff that washed down it from the foundations of the spice importers' hilltop barns had loose cloves floating in it and tasted like consommé. At Leadenhall, the rapping of the rain upon the metalled roof drove several market traders temporarily psychotic, and deprived many more of their usual cheery dispositions, and so the cheap was suspended until the inclement weather subsided. "If sodden London don't subside first," remarked more than one tired and emotional stall-holder. Many worried that if the fantastically grim weather persisted, the great masque that coming Saturday might itself have to be abandoned, and that didn't bear thinking about. The Fleet, the Tyburn, and the Westbourne all spilled beyond their courses and enjoyed wild excursions through the streets of the ditch quarters and the wharves. More refuse was then moved by force of flood than is in a month by the municipal collectors, though, to be fair, the Noble Guild of Refuse and Shite Handlers had been on a go-slow since 1734, following a dispute over the scale of Yuletide gratuities. The city's watergates were all choked to drowning point, each gagging like an over-eager sot on an upturned bottle of musket. Conduits thundered with the passing pressure, their stonework trembling, and voided themselves with huge tumult into the Thames, casting up mists of rainbow spray from their cataracts. Men from the Guild of Cisterns and Ducts visited each city conduit daily in turn, and stood, dour and drenched by the spray, shaking their heads and tutting. The cockpit on Birdcage Walk became so full that the stewards had to open all the public doors to vent the water before gladiation could begin that night. Small boys had been found sailing rival armadas of paper man-o'-wars from the pit rails. Even after the steward's action, some said the only birds worth betting on that night were ducks. When it did eventually occur, the cockfight proved to be a notable and famous bout, featuring a title fight for the bantam-weight champion of all London. The contenders were Cocky Joe, a 6-pound experienced fighter trained by John Lyon of Poplar, and Big Ben, a 12-pound newcomer presented by one Thomas Arns of Peckham. The eventual victor, Big Ben, was later disqualified when it was discovered he was a cunningly disguised buzzard, and Cocky Joe reinstated, though by this time he was full of onion and 3/4 roasted. The rain fell on all. It made no distinctions for rank, and offered no exceptions for situation. It hammered on the unprotected heads of the impoverished and loose of bowel in the jakes of Shiteburn. It drizzled off the leaded glass of the Palace Mews. It fell with a continuance and persistence that was nothing short of impertinent. From Cornhill to Ludgate, not one thing in the whole vale of the Thames prospered, except perhaps the osiers and watercress in the marshes. When one of the wags in the Roundsea Mare off All Hallows Walk remarked upon the fact that there was no superstition associated with so many days of rain before St. Dunstan's Eve, it was volubly decided that there bloody well ought to be, and bloody well would be before the tavern closed, so long as liquor sufficiently inspired the collective imagination. Indeed, some time after 10 that night, a handsome and appropriate saying was devised by a drover of advanced years named Boy Simon, but sadly it had been forgotten by the time daylight crept in and announced the dawn of St. Dunstan's Day. The towers and steeples of 109 churches shivered at the dismal morning and driving rain, and bells slapped out the hour of daybreak as if the water had softened their clappers. Most of the city's population grimaced in their states of sleep and rolled over. Those up and active through the necessity of their various offices shuddered grimly and went about their business in hats and hoods and long soggy capes. A carter, late delivering for a fishmonger in Billingsgate, overturned on the corner of Windmill Street, and his entire cargo swam off through the